that we all use, is now saying Angela Rayner will leave the government. So the PA news agency says they understand Angela Rayner will leave the government. Now, we are waiting for official confirmation to the BBC on that announcement from Downing Street, but Angela Rayner clearly under huge levels of pressure. That report received by Downing Street now, and it had been raising a significant number of questions. Now, it's not clear whether she will keep hold of her role as deputy leader of the Labour Party, a mandate that she has from the membership. And as part of that, she was made Deputy Prime Minister by Keir Starmer when they won the election last summer. But the PA news agency is now reporting that Angela Rayner will leave the government. She is Housing Secretary, and she was forced to admit this week that she had underpaid stamp duty. Ian, the significance of this, once it's confirmed, because also we're now just hearing Henry Zeffman has confirmed to the BBC Angela Rayner has resigned as Deputy Prime Minister and Housing Secretary. So Angela Rayner resigning as Deputy Prime Minister and Housing Secretary. She is out of the government and out of the cabinet. She has been a key figure and a very popular figure for many across the Labour leadership. And this comes after her admission earlier this week that she had underpaid stamp duty on buying a second home in Sussex. This poses a major problem for the Labour government and Keir Starmer, who'd hoped for a reset this week as British parliamentarians returned after the summer break. And it is now confirmed Angela Rayner has resigned. There was a lot of speculation that this was imminent in the last 24 hours after she was forced to admit that she'd underpaid stamp duty. One firm of lawyers that she had instructed also came out and gave some clarification on the information that they had provided to her. Tax experts explained that if she had been careless or she hadn't given the full information to tax or legal advisors, then she would be culpable for not paying tax. And this comes at a time, of course, when the Labour government is preparing to announce a budget in November in which it is expected that taxes will go up. Of course, integrity, honesty at the heart of the promises that Labour made when they won the election in their election campaign, their promise to effectively clean up politics after all the criticism during the Conservative Party years. Angela Rayner, a key figure for Keir Starmer because she is popular amongst the Labour membership, amongst Labour supporters and the public, in parts that it's been felt that Starmer himself was struggling to reach. So this is a huge loss. It poses huge problems for Keir Starmer. Now, whether Number 10 have been trying to work out a replacement for her, of course, that is very likely. Whether they will replace her as Deputy Prime Minister at all is not yet clear. They don't need to replace that position. They do need to fill the Housing Secretary job. Let's get all the very latest on this from our political editor, Chris Mason. Chris, what do we know?
So this moment has looked increasingly inevitable with every passing day this week, with every passing hour pretty much this week. We are awaiting the official exchange of letters that accompanies a moment like this between a Prime Minister and a departing minister. And indeed, crucially in this context, the report findings of Sir Lowry Magnus, the government's independent advisor on ministerial standards. But what we know is that Angela Rayner, a pivotal figure alongside Keir Starmer in the last 5 years since they were both elected to their respective positions within the party in April 2020, is leaving. That presents the Prime Minister with the question of a replacement and then the prospect of some other shuffling within the government as well. So a landmark moment in the relatively early life of this government, after a couple of weeks of increasingly awkward and never-ending headlines for Angela Rayner, which has, as I say, led towards this moment with increasing inevitability.
Do we know yet, Chris, whether she's going to leave her position as Deputy Leader of the Labour Party? Because that is something that is mandated by the Labour leadership and would pose, potentially a big headache, as they might see it, for the Labour leadership, because it means a whole nomination process and a vote. And obviously the government will fear that somebody would come in who would be less sympathetic to their agenda, more from the left, than Angela Rayner is.
Yeah, mandated by the Labour Party membership, the deputy leadership of the Labour Party, a directly elected role by the leadership, as is that of leader at a time when the party is there in opposition, when they were back 5 years ago with Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner. So, yes, if that were to be the case, then that's an additional complication and something that poses an additional potentially medium-term headache for the Prime Minister, as you say, because any Prime Minister will seek to build a government that reflects broadly the differing views within their party. But when there is a position that is directly elected by the membership, it means that there isn't that direct authority extending from the Prime Minister to the Deputy Leader. It would appear...
Henry Zeffman, Chris, has
just
posted that
I was just about to say exactly that. So, sorry to interrupt you. Yeah, so she is leaving that role as well. So there we go. That's a second element of this that is going to run. What does the party do now? Where does it move in terms of a race for deputy leader? And for all the reasons that we were just discussing, it is not as simple as it being entirely in the gift of the Prime Minister appointing something to a government office. Mind you, he's got those issues to wrestle with himself as far as replacing Angela Rayner in her government roles is concerned, as well as a wider expected shuffle of at least some other positions within government.
Does this mark the end of Angela Rayner's career, Chris? Is it too soon to say that? Because she does have she's had a popular following. Her personal story was seen as pretty remarkable in many ways, given her background. We have seen political comebacks, but for now it looks like she's out of all the top jobs, resigning just to confirm as Deputy Leader of the Labour Party too.
Yeah, to answer your question directly, does it end her political career? It does for now, at least in terms of that frontline role. But there's plenty of precedent in governments of all sorts of stripes for people to come back from moments like this, perhaps a few years down the track. And Angela Rayner is a big name and a big personality within the Labour movement and speaks to a constituency within it that plenty of others don't or can't. So I think there's every likelihood it's possible we still hear plenty from Angela Rayner. And in the immediate short term, in the coming months perhaps, fascinating to see what kind of role within that movement she carves out for herself in terms of the public debate, the kind of dilemmas that this government faces around benefits and taxation and priorities. So that'll be a fascinating strand, if you like, subplot of the coming months in terms of the longer term ripples and aftershocks of what we're learning now and what we'll learn about the wider ramifications in the coming hours. One caveat I would insert to this analysis is because we await the detail from Sir Laurie Magnus. He is known, for being pretty robust, pretty direct, pretty unflinching in his language. That language, if it can be accurately described as such as far as his report into Angela Rayner is concerned, which we should see shortly, it is the kind of language, if you like, sticks to you biographically as a politician. That's not to say that water doesn't go under the bridge and you can't move on from it, but the potential for any kind of comeback, and which is probably premature to be getting into when we're still reporting her resignation, can be determined by the nature and manner of the descriptors attached to her departure by those who've been charged with looking into what she's been up to.
And Chris, because politics moves at pace, people will be looking ahead as to who takes over her roles. It's not as simple as just a cabinet reshuffle to fill the housing brief, is it? Keir Starmer doesn't necessarily have to have a deputy prime minister, but Pat McFadden, often spoken of as effectively the deputy prime minister in terms of his role at the cabinet office. He is already a big figure in government, isn't he? Would he potentially be a name that would be moved up by Starmer, who is very much trusted within that inner circle, isn't he? Darren Jones, of course, has just been brought in. Could he then fill in behind Pat McFadden? I mean, there's all these roles that need to be looked at. And then, of course, in terms of the deputy leader of the Labour Party, have you been hearing names on that front too? Because that is a role that is elected by a number of people, and Downing Street again will want someone that they have faith in, but it can also get the vote of the membership and the backing of the unions.
Indeed so. So let's just unpick an element of your analysis there, and I think the crux of it is exactly the essence of joining the dots of the various names and the various positions that you were mentioning, which is that if you get a senior vacancy in government, often but not always, the person you find to fill that vacancy will already occupy a significant office, and so in moving them into that role you then create another vacancy, and before you know it you can end up in at least a mini reshuffle territory almost without intending to, and it's possible the Prime Minister might want to intend to, because if you're going to grab a moment like this, a moment of difficulty for the Prime Minister, no doubt, albeit one brought about by the conduct of his now former deputy, one way of seizing the moment is to do more than just the patch-up job as a result of something you wish hadn't happened, using it as an opportunity for wider movement, not least because we were anticipating anyway movement in the more junior ranks, a couple of vacancies, just a resignation this morning of a junior business minister, for instance. So there were some vacancies that needed patching up and sorting out. So is it used as a moment where the Prime Minister can attempt to come out on the front foot, and if you like, in personnel terms, try and define this moment as he hoped to when the week started out? And you might recall he was talking to our colleague Matt Chorley on Radio 5 Live and talking about phase 2 of his government, this idea that they'd moved beyond the initial year and a bit and they were now in what Keir Starmer called delivery mode. And instead, of course, he spent all week waiting for the delivery of a report into the conduct of his now former deputy. So can he turn this moment around to one that looks like one of sort of authority and projecting leadership, as opposed to, frankly, patching up after a very difficult week?
Chris Mason, thank you very much indeed there for that instant analysis of the news that's broken in the last few moments. Confirmation now, Angela Rayner has resigned as Deputy Prime Minister and Housing Secretary. She's also resigned as Deputy Leader of the Labour Party.
I'm Dr. David Bull. I'm Chairman of Reform UK. I've had a very different backstory. I'm a medical doctor.